How many times have you felt overwhelmed by your worries, as if every detail of your life was solely in your hands? Anxiety and fear of the future seem endless, and the weight we carry feels unbearable, as if every aspect of our existence depends exclusively on us. But what if I told you that there is an alternative? Jesus left us teachings that shed light on anxiety and fear, challenging everything we have believed so far. Yes, it's true. He introduced us to a way of living where worry does not imprison us. In this video, we will explore these profound teachings, and by the end, you will discover a vital secret that can free you from this burden. If you are ready to shed this weight and understand this transformative truth, come with me, because you won't want to miss this. Visualize the scene. Jesus is surrounded by his disciples and a crowd eager to learn more as they settle on a hill. A gentle breeze caresses their faces, and the air is filled with anticipation. He begins to talk about something that everyone faces daily: worry. But not just any worry, it is the kind that deeply corrodes our peace, turning serene nights into insomnia. Do not worry about your lives, he asserts. But what did he really mean? In a world that demands so much from us, this statement can sound quite provocative. How can anyone suggest we should not worry? Jesus seems to offer us a new perspective, something that initially contradicts everything we know. He does not suggest that we should ignore our responsibilities. There's a much deeper meaning in the message he brings, one that calls us to look beyond immediate needs and what is tangible. It's common to feel our lives are surrounded by anxieties about what to eat, what to wear, and how to present ourselves. Life becomes a minefield of worries, ready to explode at any moment. But rather than handing us a manual on how to deal with all of this, he offers an image. A life detached from this burden, light as the wind that blows around the mountains. He speaks not about what we possess, but about who we truly are. He challenges us to perceive that life, this vibrant energy that keeps us standing, transcends all the small anxieties we accumulate. Yet at the same time, he raises an intriguing question: what prevents us from living this way? Is it fear or a sense of insecurity that convinces us of our solitude in this vast world? Listening to Jesus, we feel a mixture of relief and unease. Relief because the idea of a life without this burden seems liberating, but unease as we wonder how we could possibly live like this. What if everything falls apart? It's as if he is inviting us to leap out of our comfort zone, diving into something unknown, something that challenges our need for control. In the lines of his message, there's a subtle promise, an indication that this is just the beginning of a much bigger journey. He leaves us with an unspoken question. If life goes beyond food and clothing, what really matters? Before we can reflect, he takes us to the next image, that of the birds in the sky, inviting us to soar above our anxieties and discover a new sense of trust. As he continues to teach, he brings forth a reflection that, at first glance, seems simple: the birds of the sky. He observes these little travelers moving without a fixed destination, always seeking what they need to survive. They do not plant, they do not cultivate, and they do not worry about storing away what they find. They simply live. It's inspiring to realize that these birds do not strive to control their food sources, yet they still find nourishment daily. Here, Jesus invites us to see beyond the superficial. These birds do not know the anguish that often haunts us. They appear to be immersed in natural trust, moving in harmony with the cycle of creation. For Jesus, these birds exemplify the true freedom that comes from total trust. In calling us to observe these birds, Jesus challenges us: can we live with this freedom? Anxiety about the future seems so distant when we watch these birds fly. They live in the present and find what they need exactly when they require it. They seem to understand, in some way, that they are not alone and that a source of sustenance accompanies them. Thus, Jesus reveals that divine care is a mystery that transcends our worries. At the core of his message is an invitation to trust, to set aside the control we feel we must maintain, and to experience what it truly means to be cared for by something greater. But Jesus does not stop there. The image of the birds leads us to reflect more profoundly on what this means for us. If these little beings without a fixed plan are so well cared for, what does that say about our incessant quest for security? Jesus provokes us to discover what we might learn about ourselves and about God simply by observing these birds. What does this teach us about the true value of life beyond material concerns? The answer does not emerge immediately, but it seems he wants us to uncover it gradually, alongside him. And as the birds fly, the question lingers: if they can sustain themselves, how can we find true peace? After inviting us to observe the bird's way of life, Jesus poses a surprising question. Who among you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? He does not expect an answer. The question hangs in the air, resonating in our minds. It's a moment when we recognize the weight of our worries, as if they have suddenly been laid bare. Jesus compels us to confront a truth we all know, but often resist accepting. Time is inflexible. We cannot extend our days or control them. Thus, the paradox is revealed. We worry so much about life, but does this worry actually give us the power to change it? Jesus' question reminds us of the hours wasted in repetitive thoughts, the energy spent trying to foresee every scenario, as if we are constantly playing chess against destiny. The lingering question is, how far does this take us? If worry could truly change things, it might be justifiable, but in reality, it only traps us. The more we try to control, the less we can. Jesus' assertion is not only an observation about the limitations of anxiety, but also a reflection of our insecurities and our stubbornness to believe worry can actually bring security. We are dealing with something that is beyond our understanding and cannot be dominated by our fears or desires. When Jesus poses this question, he invites us to view life in a new way. What would happen if, for just a moment, we released that need to control everything? If we let go of the idea of manipulating the future? He makes us reflect on the energy spent, and at the same time reminds us that there is a way of living that does not depend on guarantees or promises, but on a trust that is almost primal, like that of the birds. Jesus weaves his teachings together, connecting images and metaphors that draw us deeper. Suddenly, he brings us to the field where the lilies bloom, but rather than speaking openly, he encourages us to contemplate the simplicity of these flowers in contrast to human effort. The question becomes almost tangible. If the birds fly without worry, what can the flowers teach us about trust? The lilies, rooted in the soil, are a natural irony. Lacking the freedom of birds, they remain exposed to the elements, the scorching sun, the torrential rain, the wind, and yet they bloom, without doubting the process that sustains them. They stand there, with their fragility, displaying a beauty that requires no effort, one that simply exists. They do not concern themselves with appearances, and in not worrying, they reveal a glory that invites us to reflect. Jesus reminds us that these lilies, no matter how simple, are cared for in all their essence. And it is at this point that the unspoken question arises, whispering in our ears. If these flowers, which bloom and wither quickly, are so well cared for, what does that say about us? Is our incessant quest for control the very thing that hides a natural beauty, one that, like the lilies, could shine effortlessly? The lilies of the field challenge us to reconsider our struggle for control. They make us realize how our desire for perfection and guaranteed security can prevent us from experiencing true peace. The existence of lilies serves as a silent testimony that there is a balance in the universe that does not require our constant intervention. Sustained by an invisible force, a care that we cannot see, they are protected and become beautiful. As Jesus invites us to reflect on the lilies, he leads us to a challenging terrain, the future. He tells us not to worry about tomorrow, as each day brings its own challenges. But how can we put this into practice? The future, this idea both distant and yet so close, dominates us. We make plans, feel fear, and are consumed by anxiety. Tomorrow becomes an invisible monster, always lurking, ready to steal our sleep. Jesus understands this. He knows human nature profoundly, and that's why he proposes a new way to live, one day at a time. It's as if he asked us to free ourselves from the need for control, to abandon the illusion that we can shape what has yet to arrive. But how can we truly free ourselves from this fear? Jesus seems to suggest that a full life, true peace, can only be found when we leave the future in God's hands. This is a call to absolute trust, almost childlike, as if he were saying, live in the now. Let us imagine this possibility, to live without being consumed by what is to come, without worrying about what may or may not happen. This promise of freedom is enticing, even if it seems unattainable. After all, how many hours have we already wasted creating scenarios in our minds, only to watch them crumble in the face of reality? Jesus does not wish for us to ignore the future, but to understand that there is a greater plan, something beyond our control or comprehension. This may be the greatest challenge, to accept that the future is not in our hands. As he guides us to this reflection, Jesus presents us with a new question. If tomorrow brings its own worries, what is truly essential for today? Can we see what matters without the lens of fear? He encourages us to focus on the present, on what we can touch and feel right now. Hence, the path to peace will lead us to surrender to the present moment, to the invisible care that sustains each passing second. But once again, another doubt arises. If the future is not ours, how can we be sure our needs will be met? And here, Jesus is ready to lead us to a new teaching, divine sustenance. After inviting us to release the future, he assures us that our Father knows each of our needs even before we name them. Can you imagine this? A God who understands our needs before we even realize them, who knows the desires of our hearts, the pains we keep silent. Jesus offers us a vision of divine care that exceeds any expectations we may hold. While we struggle to solve our own problems, he is already at work, taking care of everything we need. This is not a generic care, it is something specific and personal. If God truly knows our needs, why do we continue to worry? Perhaps it is because we are so accustomed to thinking that to receive what we need, we must fight, ask, negotiate. However, Jesus presents a different view. Our true provision does not depend on our actions, but on the profound divine knowledge that God has of us. This leads us to reflect on what we truly desire. How many times do we confuse wishes with real needs? And is what we think is essential really important in God's eyes? Perhaps what truly matters has already been provided, but we are so focused on the expectations we create that we cannot see it. Jesus suggests that there is peace in knowing that we do not need to ask, for care is already present in all the details of life. This truth raises another question. How can we trust wholeheartedly in this divine knowledge? Jesus points out that God's care isn't limited by our understanding. But what does this really mean for our lives? If our perception of scarcity could be replaced with a certainty of abundance, how would that change our relationship with the world around us? He invites us to reflect on what is truly essential and how our view of necessity may be distorted. As Jesus leads us to this understanding about divine provision, he directs us to a new truth. Seek first the kingdom of God. What is this kingdom, after all? Jesus does not define it sharply. He doesn't draw a map or list treasures, but in challenging us, he opens the door to a new dimension of life, one not measured by material achievements, possessions, or even outward beauty, but by something that transcends all those things. Seeking the kingdom is like entering a mystical dance. Instead of following the rhythm of worries and anxieties, Jesus calls us to a higher beat, resonating in harmony with all of creation. It's fascinating to consider that he speaks of this kingdom as if it is already present, that always here, waiting to be recognized. However, this quest is not simple. It demands a reordering of priorities that challenges everything we know. In this kingdom, worries appear to dissipate, as if the weight of the world finally finds the perfect counterbalance. Jesus indicates that by directing our search toward this higher reality, all other priorities will naturally find their place. It's almost paradoxical. The less we pursue our own security, the more we find it. Seeking the kingdom is like traversing a dense forest where light filters through the leaves, revealing small paths. Each step brings us closer to the true essence of life. This journey requires courage, as it involves leaving behind everything we believe is essential. And Jesus challenges us. What do we need to set aside to finally discover this kingdom? Would it be control, or perhaps the desire for recognition? By focusing on this kingdom, everything that consumed us before, worries, fears, insecurities, aligns naturally. It's as if he hands us the key to a deeper reality, one where meaning doesn't come from appearances, but from the essence of being. As the crowd absorbs each word, Jesus shares a powerful truth that transforms our understanding. He speaks of faith the size of a mustard seed, small, almost invisible, yet possessing extraordinary potential. He states that with such faith, we would be able to move mountains. This assertion leaves us in awe. How can something so tiny create such transformation? Jesus isn't talking about grand or exuberant faith. He teaches us that even the tiniest of faith can radically alter reality. The mustard seed, no matter how small, carries within it the ability to grow and transform into something much larger. This metaphor helps us recognize that faith in its simplest form can bring great change, regardless of the circumstances surrounding us. This seed of faith urges us to view the world in a new light and live differently. It also compels us to question how many times we have failed to move mountains because we expected solid faith, while all we needed was a small spark. Jesus invites us to believe that even in the face of the greatest challenges, that small spark can become the fire that lights our way. Moreover, moving mountains is not the only aspect of faith. It also entails rest, surrendering our anxieties, and that is something powerful. Jesus presents us with an invitation to rest, something that transcends a mere physical pause or a rejuvenating night's sleep. He offers a peace that touches the depths of our souls, a relief that surpasses any earthly solution the world may provide. His call is for us to lay down the burdens that weigh us down, not just physical exhaustion, but the weight of worries, emotional pains, regrets, and anxieties that erode our spirits. Jesus invites us to cast those burdens upon him, promising a relief that surpasses any worldly answer. Imagine the burden of a weary soul accumulating pressures in a world that demands so much from us. He comes like a breath of fresh air after a storm, bringing with him the promise of rest. But this rest is not just any kind. It is a tranquility that only he can provide. This rest invites us to let go of the reins we hold so tightly. Jesus urges us toward a surrender that is not a sign of weakness, but a wise choice to let him carry the weight we do not need to bear. By accepting this freedom, we find a transformation that once seemed impossible. Amidst this offer of rest, another revelation arises. Jesus does not just leave us with rest. He also offers a yoke, not a heavy yoke, but one that is light and gentle. At first glance, this idea seems contradictory, as it connotes work and effort. However, he assures us that this yoke is different. It is gentle because it is shared, and light because it is supported by his constant love. Jesus reminds us that we were not created to bear the weight of the world alone. He calls us to walk alongside him, to take on a yoke that does not wear us out, but on the contrary, strengthens us. In doing so, he opens the doors to a peace that surpasses all understanding. But do we truly comprehend what this yoke means? As we ponder this, a new question arises. If this yoke is light, and the rest is complete, what is the secret behind this peace that guards our hearts and minds? This peace seems to be the final key to total rest, yet we still need to uncover what Jesus wants to reveal about its nature. The story continues.